Welcome. You're listening to The Best of Investing. I'm your host, Edward Brown, along with my co-host, Mark Hanf of Pacific Private Money. Our phone number is 888-912-1190. Use that number to answer the trivia questions for a 5-pack tanning certificate given away during this show. And that certificate's not sponsored by the radio station, but by Tan Bella Tanning Salon with 2 locations in San Francisco and 1 in Marin. Today's trivia theme is, as it usually is, random trivia. Got to keep you in suspenders there. And today we have a special guest, Elizabeth Rest, who is an attorney, and she's going to discuss trademarks and patents, even though she's not a patent attorney, because we want to know the difference between, trademarks and patents and copyrights. So, Elizabeth, welcome to The Best of Investing.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. So, first question is, what's the difference between a trademark, a copyright, and a patent?
So there are several different types of intellectual property that I'm sure that you've heard of and that you're familiar with. The 3 that you just named are the most common. So trademarks are any name, symbol, color, slogan that identifies the source of a product or a service. So the main function of a trademark is to designate one person's goods or services from another.
And is that where we see like the little R in the
That's
circle?
exactly right.
Okay.
The little R is specifically for trademarks. You may also see a little TM too, and sometimes a little SM. So, the little R in the circle is specified for certain trademarks. So you'll start noticing them now that I've mentioned it.
Gotcha.
But, right. And then copyrights are for original works of authorship. So think about works of art, movies, books, paintings, things like that. And patents are very specifically for new and novel inventions. So think about it as a scientific discovery or invention.
All right, and you specialize in trademarks, and
Right.
and you say that I remember off air you were telling me that a lot of attorneys don't do multiple segments of that. The average person, we think of trademarks, copyrights, patents, it's all in the same genre, but apparently it's different.
It's very different, and you'll hear people say, I'm an intellectual property attorney.
Yes.
If you were to ask me, I'd probably say that because that's what most people understand. But there are very distinct differences, and usually people that do patent law, attorneys that practice in that area, only do patent law. And then attorneys that practice in trademark do all the other types. So, trademarks, copyrights, trade dress, and then trade secrets, which I didn't mention is another area of intellectual property. And usually those attorneys are completely separate as well.
Or trade language, like Trump tried to get, "You're fired." Remember that? He tried to.
Also, he was trying to get that as a trademark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Elizabeth, I have a question for you. What about people who, so I know there's a process, and you'll probably talk about that, of how do you trademark like a phrase, for example. You typically will see a phrase like in an advertisement, and it will say TM next to it.
Sure.
And I have heard in, the course of my career that, if we do advertising and we come up with a little slogan or something, we should just put a TM there anyway, even if we don't actually legally trademark it. Are there any legal benefits to someone putting the little symbol TM next to something that they're placing on an advertisement for that the public can see?
Sure, absolutely. It sort of depends on what it is. So I don't want to make a blanket statement. That's such an attorney answer, it depends. But that is actually true. And the reality is, if it's something really generic, like you just mentioned, you're fired. That's not something you're ever going to be able to claim exclusive rights to. And another one, Paris Hilton, for example, tried to get a trademark for the phrase, "That's hot." And that's another example of something where, she may have started using it, or Trump, obviously used "You're fired" in his television show. And let's say they were to put out an advertisement in print and said "You're fired" in big bold print, and they wanted to put a little TM next to it. You can absolutely do that without applying for a registration. And it shows the world that you are claiming rights in that slogan or in that word or in that phrase. It doesn't actually mean that it's a valid right. It
Now,
just
the thing
means
is,
that you're claiming.
what if you were to put an R because R means registered, right?
Yeah, you can only use the little R in the circle, which is called the notice, the trademark notice, once you have a registration. So that's the key. You can use the TM, which is for trademark, or SM, which is for service mark. You can use that from the minute you start using a name or a word or a slogan or a symbol.
Well, what's a service mark?
A service, so trademarks are protect goods or services. So let's say that I'm a winery and I sell wine. The wine is my product. So I can get a trademark because that's a good. But I also have a tasting room where people can come and visit. And I also have a wine club. I'm offering services to the public under my same mark. So that's a service mark. And you can generically refer to them all as trademarks, but the little TM and the little SM are to designate goods or services.
Gotcha. Okay. So you just can't use the R unless you actually register it.
That's right.
Okay. And what is the process for, we got a minute before we have to kind of cut the break here and we'll continue on, but what is the process for obtaining a trademark registration? Can I do it myself?
A lot of people think that they can do it themselves, and there is a lot of websites where you can go to, but obtaining a trademark registration is deceptively easy. It's essentially a form that you file. But what you need to understand are all of the intricacies and all of the nuances of trademark law. Understand what can be protected before you move forward. Gotcha.
Okay. All right, we are going to cut to our first commercial break. We're talking random trivia here. I say this one's a fairly easy question, right? We always like to start off with an easy one, kind of tease the audience, and then we'll get into the harder ones later. So here's our first trivia question. Who was the first Republican president of the United States? So remember we used to, in the old days, we used to have the Whigs, and, you know, and all that, and then they came up.
I just said this was easy.
Yeah, well, maybe, okay, maybe it's not so easy, all right? Call 888-912-1190. Be the first caller with the correct answer. You're going to win that tanning certificate, which is worth over $100. So again, here's the trivia question. Who was the first Republican president of the United States? And stay with us. You're listening to The Best of Investing with Edward Brown and Mark Hanf and our special guest, Elizabeth Rest, to discuss trademarks. Don't touch that dial. We're going to be right back. Welcome back to The Best of Investing. Again, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Mark Hanf and our special guest, Elizabeth Rest, who's an attorney. Okay, here's our first trivia question. Who was the first Republican president of the United States?
Lincoln.
Yes, good old Abe Lincoln. Very good. That's why I figured it was easy, because there's an easy president to remember. Not like Zachary Taylor or someone like that, you know, John Tyler.
Or Taft.
Yeah, your favorite.
All these lesser known presidents.
My favorite obscure president is Taft. I always vote for Taft.
Yeah, he was for as much as he weighed, he was a president and a half. I think he was like 300 and something pounds. So anyway, right. Elizabeth, you specialize in trademark attorneyism, I guess. Mark, you were going to ask her.
Yeah, so we were just talking about, like, a lot of people will, you know, try this at home. There's so many things you can do online with LegalZoom, et cetera. And I would imagine a lot of your practice is defending, like, trademark violations. You know, what typically, we'll describe a typical situation where you're helping a client where they're claiming some kind of trademark violation.
Sure. You know, that can absolutely run the gamut, but the most common are counterfeiting, where someone is, you know, just absolutely copying, making your product and selling it as if it were real. You know, you've all heard of the fake Chanel bags and, you know, all that kind of stuff. So that's counterfeiting. So there's definitely a lot of work in that area. And then the other one is where someone will have a trademark and they come out with a product or a service that's a competing product or service with a very similar name.
So in other words, Coke has the real thing and someone else comes up with, it's almost the real thing.
Yeah, well, that would be pretty clear cut. But, you know, there are a lot of nuances in this, and there is the standard in trademark law is a likelihood of confusion. So you don't actually have to show that consumers are confused. But what you have to show in order to show that there's an infringement of your trademark is that consumers are likely to be confused.
I mean, that's very subjective. What do you
It
do?
is very subjective, and trademark law as a whole is very subjective, and
Yeah.
you know, much to the chagrin of a lot of trademark practitioners and a lot of brand owners as well.
Well,
But you know, there are standards.
so I've heard from people who were trying to get patents. They were a little nervous. In some cases, their attorney told them, don't go for a patent because all you've done is open yourself up for someone to do a little bit of tweaking and then then they can do it on their own legally. Is the same thing with a trademark? Do you open yourself up to someone stealing it?
Not necessarily. With the patent, you can reverse engineer a scientific discovery, and if you've come up with it yourself, you haven't infringed.
Yeah.
So you know there's a lot of sort of wiggle room with regard to patents, and like you said, someone can just change one little tiny thing and potentially come up with a new product. With trademarks, because of this likelihood of confusion standard, if you look at, you know, let's say that the goods are completely different. You know, let's say the trademark is trademark, which of course would never be allowed, but let's just use that as an example. And my product is selling, you know, produce, apples, oranges, etc. And someone came out with another company and they wanted to call it trademark, and they were selling air conditioning units. Well, I probably wouldn't have room to protest because there's not likely to be any confusion in the marketplace. So you look at both confusion as to the market itself and as to the goods and services. Likewise, if someone were to come up with another produce company and they wanted to call it Trademark, I'd probably have an argument there.
Gotcha.
Even though they haven't used my mark.
And isn't there certain rules about using the words like United States versus, you know, US?
There's a lot of rules. Yeah, there's a lot of rules. You can't use flags. You can't use certain people's names. Presidents, for example, going back to your trivia question. There's a lot of rules of what you can and can't use in a trade.
You know, it's funny. There was an old Sergeant Bilko episode. This is talking in the 1950s, where this guy was named Conrad Hilton, and so, or I'm sorry, no, he was named some other one. I'm sorry, he was named Conrad Hilton, and so he opened up. Bilko figured out a way to like use his name and go, hey, legally his name is Hilton, and then Hilton basically settled with him for that.
No, and that actually happens. And there's a rule in trademark law where you can't get a trademark if your mark is what they call primarily a surname. So Smith, for example, because it wouldn't be fair to everyone out there in the world named Smith who all of a sudden couldn't use their name.
So he decided to change the name to Rockefeller. But go ahead.
Yeah.
Does anyone ever trademark like a company name? Like, for example, you can do obviously a fictitious business statement, which I did when I first founded Pacific Private Money. Then I incorporated it in California, but I've always kind of wondered if I really wanted to protect that, you know, nationwide. Is there something more I should do for the name Pacific Private Money? And is it typical that you take a business name and register it or trademark it, or how do you protect that?
Yeah, absolutely. We, you know, I highly recommend getting a trademark registration for business names, so long as you're using it as a trademark. And that's sort of the catch. You know, if my business name is, you know, whatever it is, you know, LLC, but I do business as something else, which a lot of people do that. They don't do business as their corporate or LLC name. I can't get a trademark for what my company name is. But if you're using it to provide goods or services to the public, you should absolutely get a trademark registration. And the key is, in the US, you have to be doing business in interstate commerce. So that means, you know, across state lines, business between states, something like that.
And so how do businesses protect themselves from counterfeiters?
Well, there's a lot of ways that you can, and it sort of depends on the level of counterfeiting. So for one, if you're talking about, you know, huge, and I, you know, hate to say this, but the big countries where counterfeiting is happening are China and Brazil. And so if you are dealing, I know everyone always is surprised by Brazil, but so one of the things you can do is register your trademarks with customs, and it's very, very cheap. And then what will happen is anytime goods or services cross through customs, they will check their trademark list. And if goods come in that look suspicious to them, they'll pull them out and they'll call the trademark owner and notify them and say, hey, are these legitimate? Should we let this across the board?
Wow, okay.
Yeah, it's a great service. So, and you can do that in almost every jurisdiction in the world.
Very cool. Yeah, there's got to be some international laws like that.
Yeah,
So
one thing you
and
should, sorry to interrupt, I was just going to say trademark rights are jurisdictional and everybody forgets that. So let's say you have a registration in the US, you have no protection in Europe, China, you know, anywhere else. You have to get registrations in every country where you operate.
okay. And Elizabeth, before we let you go, why don't you give out your information so the audience, if they have any questions about trademarks, they can get a hold of you.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Elizabeth Rest, and my firm is Crown LLP in San Francisco. Our website is www.crownllp.com, and my email address is elizabeth@crownllp.com.
Which I assume you trademarked before you got it.
We do have a trademark for Crown. We do for legal services.
Yeah, that wouldn't look good if someone ripped off
No,
you.
especially as a branding firm.
Okay, we're going to cut to our second trivia question. What is the hottest planet? Now, you only have 8 to choose from because Pluto, unfortunately, it lost its planet status. Must have done something wrong. Call 888-912-1190 to answer this question. What is the hottest planet? All right, stay with us. You are listening to The Best of Investing. We're going to be right back. Don't touch that dial. Welcome back to The Best of Investing. Edward Brown here along with Mark Hahn. Second trivia question. What is the hottest planet?
Well, our previous guest, actually she guessed Mercury, I guessed Saturn, I just randomly, and it's...
No. The answer is Venus, and it's because the atmosphere helps retain much of the sun's heat. Because you'd think it'd be Mercury being closest to the sun, but...
yeah. I don't even want to know how hot it is, but it's probably like 700 degrees or something crazy.
Yeah, well, there you go. That was hard, but you got that one. All right, so Mark, there's a lot of stuff going on in the real estate market. It's kind of on fire, isn't it?
Yeah, you know, we're going through a really rough patch right now as a society in you know, nationwide and in California here. You know, I get 2 papers every morning at home, the Marin Independent Journal and the San Francisco Chronicle, and not a day goes by that the headlines aren't you know, everything and all there is for COVID. And
yeah.
you know, we're experiencing a spike. You're seeing charts and graphs where it looked like we had flattened the curve, and then all of a sudden, boom, it's just exploded again. And you know, Marin County, the headlines were we had the highest rate of infection, which really is a little bit misleading because we have such a small population and there's a lot of testing going on here. So it just, you know, it's just funny. I have to keep telling my wife, you know, stop reading the headlines because, you know, first of all, the people that wrote the article don't usually write the headlines. The headlines are written by the editors because they want to draw eyeballs. But if all you do is read headlines all day long, you know, and God help you if you read the Drudge Report because, you know, it's got, you know, 50 headlines from across the world that would just make you want to crawl back in bed.
But how many people?
So, you know, with all of this...
I mean, what would we have, like 50 cases? I mean, it wasn't really that large. It went from like 35 to 50. So it's like, oh my gosh, it's 50% increase. But
well, and again, you know, we're talking, you know, and again, I don't want to make this show about Marin County because, you know, this is a Bay Area radio show, but you know, the Bay Area, you know, now we're seeing businesses being asked to close again that we're preparing to open. And I guess the point I'm trying to make, and this is not, you know, I'm not saying anything new or novel that anybody doesn't know, is there's a lot of economic hardship going on right now. But within that economic hardship, there are areas where certain industries are doing actually rather well. And I happen to be blessed at Pacific Private Money to be in a lending space where demand really didn't go down all that much. It did go down. Year over year, our company is down for the first time in 10 years. We're not experiencing year over year growth year to date. And that's because a lot of the loans that we've had in the pipeline never actually closed. The transactions didn't happen, people backed out. So, but still, we've stayed open, we're advertising, and what's interesting right now is our loan pipeline, the loan application pipeline of loans that we've green lighted and we've collected applications, it's as high as it's been all year, close to $30 million, which for us is a pretty, what we call a fat pipe. So And in the real estate industry, we talk to realtors all the time. In the last couple of weeks, what I'm hearing is that the real estate market in the Bay Area is on fire. Things that that are well priced and listed are getting multiple offers again, and that reflects the fact that in the Bay Area, as much as California, we have limited inventory, and of course the newspaper will tell you that listings are down year over year. Well, yeah, okay. Well, fewer homes are on the market, and much fewer homes are on the market than in really strong years where lots of homes. It was a robust marketplace, and fewer homes, but those fewer homes are going quickly. So it's still, for the most part, a seller's market throughout California, and particularly in the Bay Area. It's not a buyer's market. We didn't have the 30%, 20 to 30% decline in real estate values that a lot of people were fearful of back in March. Well, half were fearful and the other half were hopeful, right?
Yeah. I mean,
for opportunities.
So why don't you think, with the fact that of the virus, not dissipating yet and potentially increasing, why has real estate stayed up?
Well, the real estate industry has gotten really creative in an effort to be able to take what was largely a very hands-on and personal experience and put it online and make it so that you can do virtual tours, you can get a loan without ever having to visit a bank or a mortgage broker. You can do everything online and over the phone, and you can have notaries come by wearing a mask and sign the loan documents. In fact, loan applications, I happen to bank with Wells Fargo, and I was reading an internal memo that actually it's not an internal memo, it was released to the public. They're now only taking jumbo loan refinances, and then again, jumbo loans are pretty common in the Bay Area. They're only taking jumbo loan refinance applications if you have $1 million or more in their bank. So they're really, and that's up from $250,000.
Yeah.
And but still, they're I forgot what the stat was. I didn't write it down, but they're exploding in refinance applications right now. Year over year, they're
who have $1 million in their bank.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Well, that's the way. That's their way of slowing down the rate of refinance applications, because I just refinanced my home and I'm about to sign loan documents this week. It took a few months to do it because I own my own company and I've got complicated financials. So, it's taken the better part of 90 days to refinance my home, but I locked in a 3% rate. And, that's pretty amazing. So so I'm pretty happy about that. Give a shout out to Wells Fargo there, who I know have had a lot of bad press lately, but there are a lot of fine people that work for that bank, and they have among the lowest rates that you're going to find for jumbo loan products, if you can get your application in, which now looks like it's going to be a little bit tough. But again, just the point of this segment really is to say that we're in a business at Pacific Private Money, Edward, where you and I are raising capital from private individuals who we use that capital to lend that money out, and to thank them for the use of their capital, we pay them 7 to 8% return on their money. And I'm here to tell you that the real estate industry, the lending industry, the purchasing industry is very strong right now in the Bay Area.
All right, when we come back,
notwithstanding COVID.
Okay, when we come back, we're going to get into more of that. I'm sure the audience wants to know how they can very conservatively earn over 7%, closer to even 7.5%. All right, third trivia question. What is Aladdin's monkey friend named? What was his name? Remember? In the cartoon where Robin Williams was...
I saw the movie a lot, but I don't know that I can remember the name. I'll have to think about that during the commercial break.
All right, call 888-912-1190. The first caller with the correct answer is going to win that tanning certificate. Stay with us. The Best of Investing is going to be right back. Welcome back to the Best of Investing. Again, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Mark Hoff. Non-Fawn is off today. Third trivia question. What is Aladdin's monkey friend called? What's his name?
Badu?
Close. Abu. And not
Abu, that's right.
Yeah, and not Apu.
I had it flipped.
Not Apu like in The Simpsons, where he says, "Please do not feed peanuts to my god." Remember that? We tries to beat it to the fake elephant. I love that one. Homer. Okay,
Oh, that's
so
good.
when we cut to break, we had teased the audience a little bit with the fact that your company is paying its investors a little over 7%, 7.5% actually, a little more like it. How do people get involved? What's the deal with that?
Well, just again, a tiny bit of background on that. You know, we talked last segment about how the real estate industry is strong. Banking is remained fairly strong. Demand for mortgages and refinances have remained fairly strong. And strong is relative. Strong relative to the number of houses that are transacting in the Bay Area and in California, and the number of listings that are coming back onto the market. There's just a lot of activity happening in real estate in the Bay Area and California right now. A lot of activity, a lot of strong activity. Prices are stable, and as we all know, mortgage rates are as low as they've ever been, and 3% mortgages are not difficult to obtain, both through banks and from other, non-bank, non-agency loan programs. There's just a lot of 3% money out there right now if you qualify for it. So, but if you don't qualify for it, and this is where we come in, if you're self-employed and you struggle to prove your income, or you're self-employed and you write off everything so you show virtually no income, which is great, but there's always a cost to that. And the cost for those of you who have a business or you're self-employed and you write everything off is you don't have to pay taxes, but guess what? You're not entitled to get 3% money because banks insist that you actually make money and pay taxes, unfortunately, in addition to having a good credit score. There's a lot of people out there who are transacting that don't qualify for that kind of money, and they want to buy property, and they need a tool, a funding tool, to be able to purchase property. And then given time, they can massage their finances in a way that will allow them to get financing. It might not be 3%, but it might be 4 or 5%. Our money at Pacific Private Money, we rent out to borrowers closer to 9% in this particular market, but it's generally used like bridge financing, basically bridge meaning short term, and they use our money to be able to purchase property that they have a plan for, whether they're going to move into it and then refinance it down the line. Maybe they need 4 or 5 or 6 months to do that, or they're going to improve the property and flip it. There's just a number of reasons why they use what used to be called hard money, still called hard money in some circles. We call it private money or fast alternative financing. And so when people come to us, we evaluate their credit worthiness. We look at the property. We look at their exit strategy, which is what we call, how are you going to pay us back? You're going to refinance, or you're going to sell the property? One of those two things has to be part of the plan, because we're really not 30-year money, or 10-year money. We're really, 1 year money, 6 month money, 1 year, 18 months, 24 months. That's the, 90% of the loans we make are paid off in less than 2 years, and probably a third of the loans we make are paid off in 6 months. So we charge 9% on average for our money for our first position loans, and all of that money is sourced privately. It's from accredited investors, which in the Bay Area is a fairly reasonable bar to achieve. It doesn't take much for many Bay Area. What I'm trying to say is there's a high percentage of Bay Area residents who are considered accredited, where they have at least $1 million net worth, and those investors are we call them retail investors because they're kind of your everyday investor. They got several $1 million in savings. It's their retirement savings, and they're looking to increase the yield that they're able to generate, the weighted average yield. They'll have some in stocks. They'll have some in bonds. They'll have some in annuities. And many of them have learned over the years that the alternative investment realm, which is what we at Pacific Private Money are considered, they've learned that, wow, you can make investments that are backed by mortgages. And since all we do when we lend money out of Pacific Private Money, we only make mortgages. That's the only thing we do is mortgage-backed loans. And we charge 9%, and we typically pay our investors something below that, below a fee, whether it's a servicing yield or a management fee. And there's several ways that people invest with us. We now have 3 funds at Pacific Private Money. We have our legacy fund, the Pacific Private Money Fund, which we launched in 2013. That's been paying close to 8% now for 7 years straight. And then we've got two new funds that we just launched. One's the North Star Capital Fund, which we're up to $2 million. I think we just hit the $2 million mark on that one. And we just launched it 30 days ago. And that one's going to pay between 8 and 10% based on construction loans that we have found to be in rather high demand. And we've got some specialists who understand how to underwrite construction loans. And those, so we're pretty excited about that, to be able to help builders who are still rebuilding a lot of the fire-destroyed homes in Sonoma and Napa counties. And then the third fund we have is one that I'm probably most excited about, because it really allows us to extend our business model much more effectively, and that is what we call the Freedom Fund. And the Freedom Fund is it's designed similarly to other funds, with one exception, is that we don't enforce the lockup period. So we allow people to put money in. There's a $250,000 minimum for that particular fund. But we don't have the 1 year or extended lockup period, nor do we enforce a penalty for early withdrawal. It is a Reg D fund. However, we use that money to basically close loans that we're going to sell to third parties. So we treat it like a warehouse line of credit for our purposes.
And how large is that fund right now?
That fund is about $3.5 million right now, and we're not looking to grow that fund too large. We're looking to work with maybe 10 to 15 million, because we've identified some new clients that like to buy the loans that we originate, because they love that yield that they're able to get. And so so the Freedom Fund, and we pay a flat 7%, and that's so it acts like a money market account, although it's not a money market account. It's still a mortgage pool fund, but we only close loans in that fund that we're going to sell off within 30 days. So it's like a warehouse line. We clear it every couple of weeks. And so we've got 7% if you just want to park your money somewhere, $250,000 or more. Maybe you're holding, you want it to be relatively liquid because you want to buy real estate, or you want to make other investments, but you don't want to earn zero while it's sitting in the bank. It's a way for you to earn a nice yield on money that you'd prefer to keep liquid. North Star Capital Fund, for those who don't get too excited by a 7.5%, 7.75% yield. They want to be a little bit more aggressive, and we're really working hard to try to get that yield on the North Star Capital Fund above 9% in our first year, so we can prove the model. Or if you just love stability and you appreciate the track record, the 7-year track record of a fund like Pacific Private Money Fund, we pay 7.5%. For more information on all of this stuff, we've got landing pages on all three funds at pacificprivatemoney.com. Click the invest page, pacificprivatemoney.com, click invest.
All right, stay with us. The Best of Investing will be right back with some closing comments and deal of the week. Welcome back to the Best of Investing. Last time for today, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Mark Hahn. Nam Fawn is off today. We already finished our trivia questions. So, interesting, I'd mentioned this deal of the week probably about a month ago. The interesting thing is when people hear about how expensive the money is to borrow, 9% and a couple of points, whatever, they why would anyone want to borrow that? Especially if they can get from the bank. Well, the interesting situation was that this one couple had wanted to move from one house to another, and they could qualify for a bank loan, but it was their offer that they were going to put in was going to have to be pretty close to asking, if not above, because there was a competing offer. But because Pacific Private Money was able to help them come up with money in 11 days, it appeared like they were going to put in an all-cash offer. Technically, it wasn't all cash.
We call it mimicking a cash offer.
Mimicking a cash offer, exactly.
Realtors get to mimic a cash offer with our loan commitment.
Exactly. And as it turns out, the sellers decided to accept their offer, even though it was $75,000 less, because it was very, very clean and it was going to close in 11 days. The other offer was $75,000 higher, but it was going to take your typical 30, 45 days or more, and you never know. So in this case, it actually made sense for the client, the borrower, to pay a high rate of interest and points, and they still saved money because of the fact that they saved $75,000, and because there's no prepayment penalty on it, they refinanced in about 3 months.
So we say all the time that many times our money pays for itself. And to the average person who doesn't really think it through, they go, oh, that's crazy. You know, I don't want to, you know, they get sticker shock from 9% and 2 points, which is $20,000 on $1 million loan. And they think, why would anybody pay that? Oh, that's usury. I mean, we've heard all of the objections from people who just don't really think it through. And yet you just provided an example of someone who actually made money. Yep. They got not only did they get the house they want, but they got it for $75,000 less than the other guy because they had a very, very clean offer. Their realtor understood that with hard money, we had a commitment there to fund that loan and close quickly. So they were able to close in a relatively aggressive time period, less than 2 weeks. The seller was thrilled because the seller's like a sure thing. Yeah. And if you have a clean offer with few or no contingencies, and the number one contingency that always makes the seller nervous is the financing contingency. If you have no financing contingency and the only contingency you have are inspections and reports, then, you know, and the seller knows what he's selling and he's confident that that the reports will be clean and the inspection will be fine, then you really have, you know, what amounts to a non-contingent sale. And, you know, your seller, as a buyer, you can offer less and often win the deal.
Well, especially now with things being as crazy as they are with the economy and lenders, you know, people don't know if they're actually going to get their loan, you know. And
if I were selling real estate today, right, if I were selling real estate today and it were a similar situation that you just pointed out, I would discount for a sure thing. I absolutely would. Yeah. You know, it's just not worth waiting 45 days to find out that, oh, something happened and they're not qualifying and now they need another 30-day extension. And you're sitting there going, I made plans. Exactly. So it's really hard.
All right,
and,
one more time.
One more time. So didn't give out my phone number yet. We're in the Bay Area here at 415-883-2150. That's 415-883-2150. Call and ask questions. You know, we have a really friendly staff and we love talking about how we make money for our clients in this business. So if you're a realtor and you're looking to get more information on how you can use our bridge loans as a tool, we work with a lot of realtors. If you're an investor looking for more information about how you can make, you know, 7, 8, 9% on your money, again, call us at 415-883-2150 or go to our website, pacificprivatemoney.com.
All right, here's our thoughts for the day. I'm at the age where an all-nighter just means that I didn't have to get up to go to the bathroom. And if I won the award for laziness, I would just send somebody to pick it up for me. All right, tune in next week to the Best of Investing. We're going to be giving away more free prizes for answering trivia questions. Thanks for listening. On behalf of our team, I'm Edward Brown, wishing you the best of investing. So long.